I was absolutely devastated. I didn't know what to do. He obviously had some addiction issues.
The Dr. Quinn cast looked perfect on screen, but behind the cameras, their lives were falling apart. One star was secretly outed in shocking photos that destroyed his career overnight. Another mysteriously vanished from the show in 1995, and fans still don't know why. Years later, tragedy struck when one beloved actor was killed in a horrific accident that shocked Hollywood. Today, their transformations will surprise you. Some found new careers you'd never expect. Others faced heartbreak that changed everything. Jane Seymour. Jane Seymour's journey begins in a place most people never imagine for a future star. She was nearly broke in 1993, sitting with a phone in her hand, trying to steady her voice as she called her agent and said she would do anything for work. It felt scary to admit that, yet she had no choice. Bills were piling up. Roles had slowed down. Her confidence felt thin. But then everything shifted when she landed the part of Dr. Michaela Quinn. The show started the same year, and suddenly this woman who feared losing everything became the center of a series that ran for 6 seasons and reached homes in 98 countries. She won a Golden Globe. She earned 2 Emmy nominations. And even with all the praise, she kept moving like someone who remembered exactly how close she came to losing it all. Still, the spotlight never protected her heart. Her personal life kept shaking under her feet. She went through 4 divorces, and each time she said the decision had never been hers. She found out about the infidelities long after the damage was done, so the pain always arrived late and sharp. There is something about discovering the truth after everyone else knows it. It makes the ground feel unsteady. She carried that weight quietly, while the world only saw the graceful actress on screen. Then life delivered blows that had nothing to do with fame. Heart disease began to move through the people she loved. Her mother died from it. Her father died from it. Even her best friend lost the battle. Those losses came one after another until they shaped the way she looked at her future. She learned that heart disease kills more women in the United States than all cancers combined. That number stayed with her. It pushed her to take statins and check her cholesterol regularly. It pushed her to join the American Heart Association so she could warn other women before it was too late. And then came another tragedy. She lost her granddaughter Jade to a heart-related fight. That moment changed her again, pulling her even closer to her family, especially her 6 children, because she knew how quickly life could shift. Now she is 74 and refuses to slow down. She found love again with John Zambati, an ER doctor who brought calm into her life when she least expected it. She holds that joy carefully but confidently. At the same time, she fights ageism every chance she gets, both in Hollywood and in healthcare. She keeps telling women to watch their numbers and trust their bodies. She keeps pushing for a revival of Dr. Quinn because that character still lives inside her, and she knows the fans feel the same way. Joe Lando's life kept moving long after people stopped seeing him as Byron Sully. Everyone remembered the rugged cowboy on Dr. Quinn, yet his real path carried a weight that felt much harder than anything he ever played on screen. Then, January 2025 arrived and changed everything in a single morning. The Palisades fire tore through Los Angeles with terrifying speed, and he woke up to smoke, alarms, and a rush of fear. He barely had time to grab anything before evacuating. Hours later, he stood in front of what used to be his home and realized he had lost every memory and every piece of his life. The fire burned more than 1,500 acres and pushed thousands of families out. In that crowd of frightened people stood Joe Lando, Not as a television hero, but simply as a man who had nothing left except his family. What happened next showed what real friendship looks like. Within hours of losing his home, he and his family were welcomed by Jane Seymour at her Malibu place. She did not hesitate. She opened her doors and her arms and kept them with her for 5 weeks. She played Dr. Quinn beside him years earlier, and now she treated the Landos as if they truly were family. He said he had nothing left except the people he loved and the people who stepped forward. His gratitude poured out when he wrote that there are angels among us. Anyone who saw his message could feel how shaken he was and how lifted he felt by her kindness. News outlets picked up the story, and people everywhere were struck by the way 2 actors who played lovers on screen faced a real disaster together in a quiet and honest way. Even after all that loss, he kept moving. He did not stop working. He showed up in guest spots on shows like NCIS and Melrose Place. He carried on and even took a role in the 2011 film Thrift Store Cowboy. His net worth sits around $2 million, and he remains active in the world that once made him famous. His journey reminds you that fame never protects anyone from disaster. Life can wipe out everything you own in a few hours. What matters is how you stand up afterward and who stands with you. Joe Lando's path from television hero to wildfire survivor to grateful friend shows a kind of strength that feels quiet at first, but becomes powerful the more you think about it. Chad Allen. Chad Allen had a way of making people care about him even when he was young. Anyone who watched him as Matthew Cooper on Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman could feel how bright his future looked. But life has a habit of turning fast, and his did in 1996 when he was only 21. One morning, the world woke up to see photos of him kissing another man in a hot tub. The Globe had published them. The pictures came from someone who claimed to be a friend, and the betrayal cut deep. Chad did not choose to share this part of his life. It was taken from him and handed to millions. The shock spread through Hollywood because the industry in the 90s was not gentle with actors who lived outside the image it wanted. He was pushed into a storm he never agreed to walk into. And the fallout came quick. CBS refused to even consider him for new roles after the outing. Doors that had been open since his childhood slammed shut one by one. For years, he felt like he was standing outside a world he had worked his whole life to be part of. Many LGBTQ actors faced that kind of treatment back then, but for a young actor who had grown up in front of America, the bruises landed harder. Yet something in him refused to break. He kept moving. Slowly at first, then with more certainty as he began to see that his truth could be a strength. In the early 2000s, he started showing up as himself. He spoke openly about identity and about the weight of hiding. His voice grew stronger every year. He turned toward activism and toward work that felt honest. He kept acting, but he picked roles that matched his real experiences. He also stepped behind the camera and learned what it felt like to create stories instead of waiting to be chosen for them. Then another shift came. He went back to school. He studied psychology at UCLA, and the work lit something inside him. He wanted to understand people. He wanted to help them heal in ways he had once struggled to do for himself. Years passed, and he kept going. He earned his Doctor of Psychology degree in 2020 from Antioch University, New England. It had taken 7 years of study and patience. In 2022, he passed his licensing exam and shared the news online. He said it felt like the last big hurdle. The message was simple, but full of relief. After spending half his life being defined by Hollywood, he had carved out a new path that belonged entirely to him. What makes his story so gripping is how unexpected it is. Many child stars fade quietly, But Chad did something different. He took the very thing that hurt him the most and turned it into something that could help others. Today, he works as a clinical psychologist, focusing on young LGBTQ people who are trying to understand who they are in a world that is not always kind. He gives them the support he wished he had at 21 when his life exploded overnight. Everything he went through, every twist and every bruise, is now part of the way he guides others. Jessica Bowman. Jessica Bowman stepped into millions of living rooms as Colleen Cooper, and for a while it felt like she would stay on that path forever. She was young, confident, and full of spark. Viewers loved how she played the adopted daughter who grew up in the wild push of the American West. But when the show ended in 1998, her life shifted in ways no one expected. She kept acting for a bit, moving through new roles with ease. First came Young Hearts Unlimited in 1998, then Lethal Vows in 1999, and a little later she appeared in Joyride in 2001 with Paul Walker. Each project kept her working, but nothing pulled her in the way Dr. Quinn once had. Even so, when she returned for Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman, The Heart Within in 2001, she gave Colleen a final goodbye that left many fans emotional. Colleen marries Andrew Cook and moves away, and the way Jessica carried those last moments made the ending feel real and tender. Her work on the show had already earned her the Young Artists Award in 1996 and nominations in 1997 and 1998, and people still talk about how honest she was on screen. As time moved on, Jessica's life took a softer turn. She stepped back from Hollywood and followed another path. She went back to school. She learned new fields. Slowly, she moved towards something bigger than acting. She began focusing on mental health, advocacy, and the quiet work of helping people. In recent years, she has spoken openly about the trauma caused by school shootings and the need for stricter gun laws. She talked about the weight of patriarchy and how it shapes society in ways that break people down. She pushed for more women in leadership and more voices rising in places where they had been ignored. Her words carried a sense of lived experience, as if she had grown into someone who understood both the noise of fame and the silence that follows. While many of her co-stars stayed in the entertainment world, Jessica chose something else. She avoided the rush of cameras and red carpets and found comfort in a life that was steady and private. She did not chase big roles. She did not look for attention. Instead, she stayed close to her community and devoted herself to causes she cared for. She has not appeared in major productions since the mid-2000s, but her impact survived long after the lights faded. Her journey shows that fame can drift away like a passing season, but purpose stays when a person chooses it. Erika Flores. Erika Flores was rising fast when most actresses her age were still trying to get their first line on screen. People watched her as Colleen Cooper on Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman, and felt like she was on her way to something big. Everything seemed steady until 1995 arrived, and the whole picture shifted. Her exit looked simple from the outside, but once you looked closer, it felt like something heavier was moving under the surface. She was only a teenager, yet she found herself caught between producers who wanted her to sign a 5-year commitment and her own plans that pointed in a different direction. She wanted space for school. They wanted a locked contract. The tension grew until she walked away, and the studio replaced her almost overnight with Jessica Bowman. Viewers turned on their TVs and felt a jolt because the switch came without warning. The show never explained it, and the quiet around it created a kind of fog. People whispered about backstage trouble, but no one ever offered anything solid. Once she stepped out of that world, her career slowed in a steady slide. She picked up a few small roles here and there, but nothing stayed for long. Her last notable part came in 2009 when she played Sarah in an episode of House. After that, she drifted away from acting in a soft and almost gentle fade. In 2006, she married Bart Burson and later became a mother of two. While many former child stars end up fighting their own fame or drowning in attention they never asked for, Erica did something different. She stepped back completely. She chose peace over spotlight. She chose a quiet home over cameras and crowds. What made her story even more striking was the silence that followed. There was no meltdown, no wild headline, no dramatic fall. It was almost rare to see someone slip out of Hollywood without noise. Fans kept waiting for a tell-all or some hidden twist, but nothing like that ever came. Instead, her life turned into an example of a calm retreat, a reminder that walking away can be its own kind of strength. Her path stayed mysterious because she never tried to explain it, yet it carried a kind of dignity. She had lived in the center of attention once, and when she chose to leave it behind, she never looked back. Shawn Toovey stepped into millions of homes as Brian Cooper on Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman, and for a while he felt like the sweet, wide-eyed kid who would grow up on screen forever. He appeared in 148 episodes from 1993 to 1998, bright and curious, the kind of child actor people rooted for. Then, almost without warning, he slipped out of the spotlight. Fans wondered what happened, but the truth moved in a softer direction than anyone expected. By 2001, after the second Dr. Quinn TV movie, he simply walked away. No scandal, no fight, no dramatic twist. He chose school over studios and privacy over fame, even though he had already won 4 Young Artist Awards by age 15. That decision surprised everyone because child stars rarely step away on their own terms. While many of his co-stars kept working, Shawn went down a quieter path. He finished his studies without turning it into a headline. Those rare moments when he stepped back into acting, like Nash Bridges in 2000 or NCIS Los Angeles in 2014, felt more like small waves than attempts at a comeback. He showed up when he wanted and left when he felt done. What caught people off guard was something else entirely. He spent his time helping children through work that never got loud attention. He became a founding member of the Children's Board for the Audrey Hepburn Hollywood for Children Foundation. He supported the Juvenile Diabetes Foundation, the Braille Institute, Camp Ronald McDonald, and Meals on Wheels. He walked into all these spaces quietly, giving his time without any press following him. It was the kind of work that showed who he was more than any interview ever could. Sometimes he even slipped back into Brian Cooper for charity theater events, including A Christmas Carol with Orson Bean. Those nights showed he had not fully left his roots. He just carried them differently now. People who knew him in the 90s called him every teenage girl's dream, but he never let that image lead his life. He moved toward something steadier. He married. He became a father. He built a life that did not need cameras or red carpets. Friends who speak about him say he is humble and gentle, and always thinking about how to help kids who have been overlooked. They say he cares deeply about mental health and child advocacy and never uses his past fame for attention. William Shockley. William Shockley spent 6 seasons and 120 episodes bringing Hank Lawson to life on Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman. People saw a tough saloon keeper with sharp eyes and a steady swagger. They believed that was the whole story, but his real life moved in ways that pulled far beyond the frontier town on screen. When the show ended, he didn't drift around waiting for the next role. He stepped straight into the creative world he had been watching from the sidelines. Bit by bit, he wrote, produced, and co-created projects that kept the spirit of the West alive. He helped shape 11 feature scripts and produced more than 13 feature films and 3 TV movies. It felt like he had stored all those ideas while playing Hank and finally let them out. Then something happened that shook Hollywood during the late 1990s. Shockley spoke openly about being gay. Few actors at the time were willing to say something like that out loud, but he did. The reaction around him was loud and messy, yet he kept working. He lived openly for nearly 15 years while staying in the industry, and every project he took on felt like another quiet push against old rules. He simply kept going. Life, though, brought a hard turn in 2005. He was crossing a street in Venice, California, when two vehicles hit him. The impact nearly took his life. He spent long stretches in hospitals, fighting through pain that stayed with him even after he stood up again. Rehabilitation shaped his days for a while. Something in him changed after that. The way he moved, the way he worked, the way he chose his projects. It all came with a new kind of awareness, as if he understood time differently. Still, he refused to slow down. He co-wrote and starred in westerns like The Gun Down, The Legend of 5 Mile Cave, and Far Haven. Each film carried pieces of him. Critics noticed the craft behind them, and fans felt that same steady presence they remembered from Hank Lawson. By then, Shockley was not the man people once thought they knew. He was building something larger. Then came 2025. He told fans he had a new Western on the way. The title was Long Shadows, and this time he wasn't only producing it, he directed it. That first step into directing felt like a quiet victory he had earned over years of pushing forward. Even now he stays out of the spotlight, working from the edges, always shaping something new. Frank Collison. Frank Collison always carried a quiet charm, and people first felt it when he played Horace Bing, the warm telegraph operator on Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman. When the show ended in 1998, many thought he might fade away, but he never did. Instead, he kept moving from one world to another, almost as if his career refused to sit still. He slipped into films, stepped into television, and even shaped characters with only his voice. And with each project, he showed that he was far more than the gentleman behind the telegraph window. Soon he appeared in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou in 2000 as Wash Hogwallop, bringing humor to a story filled with chaos. Then, in 2004, he took on the role of Victor in The Village and added another layer to his growing list of characters. At the same time, he lent his voice to Grandpa Goodman in the wild and dark animated world of Mr. Pickles. It proved something important. He could shift from heartfelt moments to strange comedy with ease, and people remembered him for it. But what surprised everyone most came years later. Instead of slowing down, he walked deeper into experimental films and small independent projects. He chose roles in short films like Step 9 in 2021 and Goodbye Dessa in 2019. Then something special happened. His short film Why All Our Family was honored in 2025 at the Toronto Art Film Spirit Awards. For many, it felt like a quiet spark turning into a bright moment. It showed he still chased new ideas and refused to sit in the shadow of old fame. He wanted growth, not comfort. Through all of this, he never stopped caring about theater. For more than 30 years, he stayed involved with the Pacific Resident Theater in Venice, a place he helped build with his own hands and heart. The theater went on to win more than 25 Los Angeles Drama Critics Circle Awards, and Collison kept returning to the stage, moving from Shakespeare to modern stories with the same steady passion. Even at 75 in 2025, he kept performing. He kept showing up. He kept reminding people that creativity stays alive as long as you feed it. Orson Bean. Orson Bean spent his final days doing what he loved. He was still on stage, still making people laugh, still carrying that warm spark that had followed him through more than 6 decades of work. And then everything shifted in a single moment. It was the evening of February 7th, 2020. He was 91 and crossing Venice Boulevard in Los Angeles, just a short walk from the Pacific Resident Theater. He had deep roots there. He had even wrapped up a production of Bad Habits with his wife Allie Mills not long before. The night felt ordinary, almost calm, but around 7:30 p.m., he stepped off the crosswalk. A Honda Civic came toward him and hit him, knocking him to the ground. People nearby gasped, but before anyone could move, a Toyota Prius came through and struck him again, dragging him for almost a quarter of a block. The impact scattered debris across the street. The theater's artistic director saw what looked like an explosion and canceled the performance on the spot. Paramedics rushed in, but there was nothing left to save. He was pronounced dead at the scene. The coroner later confirmed it was a traffic-related death. The news spread fast. People who had seen him just days earlier could not understand how someone so full of life could vanish in a blink. He had been working non-stop, even at 91. Many remembered him as Lauren Bray, the grumpy shopkeeper on Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman from 1993 to 1998. But others knew him from Modern Family, Desperate Housewives, Grace and Frankie, and so many other shows. He carried stories wherever he went. Jokes, too. Raunchy ones sometimes. He greeted people with a grin that stayed with them long after he walked away. He had just finished a comedy run. He was rehearsing another play. So when word spread that he was gone, disbelief settled over everyone who knew him. Soon candles and flowers appeared on Venice Boulevard. Strangers stopped to stand quietly. Colleagues cried as they talked about him. Some called him the grandfather of their theater. Others said he was the heart of their community. And it felt true, because Orson Bean was never just a television actor. He was a stage legend who shaped shows, made friends out of audiences, lifted young performers, and stayed curious until his last breath. That is what makes his story rest so heavy. A long life filled with humor, discipline, kindness, and hard work came to an end in a moment no one expected. Yet the echo of his presence stayed behind. It moved through the theater halls he helped build. It sat in the memories shared by actors who learned from him. It lived in fans who watched him through generations.